Hong Kong bracing for the approach of Super Typhoon Yagi. In Beijing, the opening of a three-day summit forum on China-Africa cooperation. And in the UK, a public inquiry blames deaths in the Grenfell Tower fire on incompetence and greed. Hello and welcome to TVB News. The Hong Kong Observatory issued the number 8 northeast gale or storm signal at 6:20 p.m. This as Super Typhoon Yagi continues on its course towards Hainan Island. The storm is expected to skirt around 300 kilometers southwest of Hong Kong tomorrow morning. Jackie Lin reports from one of the flooding hotspots and checked out how citizens were gearing up for the storm.
In the coastal areas of Hong Kong, Heng Fa Tsuen has been among the neighborhoods most ravaged by typhoons over the years. Winds already packing much strength around the afternoon, with big waves smashing the coastline. Bracing for the storm, the flood-prone waterfront housing estates have taken precautionary measures with taped glass panels and windows. Some citizens said the observatory has alerted the public about the typhoon in advance so they could better prepare for the potential onslaught.
I got an exam tomorrow and they already make some adjustment for that. They already cancel it tomorrow and switch it to the Saturday, and so the observatory did a good job.
I just bought some fruits from market in case, every time is no food in welcome and parking shop.
Extra water barriers were placed. The security booth taken away to prevent it from being blown away. In 2017, Heng Fa Tsuen was devastated by Super Typhoon Hato, which flooded its underground parking lot. Workers toiled away to unclog the draining system. Across the sea in Lei Yu Moon, merchants stacked up sandbags. The government has set up flood barriers as tall as a person. Elevated platforms for pedestrians to cross installed in case of flooding around low-lying areas. Residents also work to move their valuables and belongings above ground. Business owners, meanwhile, are concerned that heavy downpours and storm surges brought by Yagi will ruin their merchandise. This restaurant manager said they can't sell mooncakes if they are soaked, and cans of food could get rusty after being flooded too. The historic rainstorm last year had Temple Mall in Wong Tai Sin partially submerged. No special measures could be seen at the mall this year as of Thursday afternoon. To ensure student safety, the Education Bureau has announced classes of all-day schools will remain suspended on Friday. They include primary and secondary schools as well as kindergartens. The public is also advised to stay tuned to the latest updates from authorities and stay away from the shorelines in light of the adverse weather conditions. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
We now go live to our reporter Celine Chan in Tsim Sha Tsui. So Celine, what is the situation like over there right now?
Thank you, Melissa. Storm signal number 8 was issued earlier at 20 minutes past 6 o'clock and is expected to remain in force until at least tomorrow noon. So let's take a look at how things are going here in Tsim Sha Tsui. So the last ferry has just departed around 3 minutes ago, but we can actually still see some passengers around. So public transport will still provide limited service after the storm signal number 8 was hoisted. But it's not very windy here at Tsim Sha Tsui, and some passerby told us Yagi wasn't as strong as what they've expected. Members of the public were advised to stay away from the shoreline and not to engage in any water sports. So that's all the update we have for now, and we'll keep following up on the situation in town. Back to you at the studio.
Thank you, Celine. Super Typhoon Yagi has affected the city's land, sea, and air traffic. Jackie Lin reports.
At least 38 flights canceled Thursday due to Super Typhoon Yagi. This tourist from Taiwan had to rebook her flight, and she said it's quite nerve-wracking given she has to go back to work on Friday.
Exactly 3 hours early. Oh, I didn't receive any news. That's why I just decided, there might be chaos and lots of people.
The airport authority said it will activate the mechanism on Friday morning for airlines to reschedule flights based on factors including runway capacity. Hong Kong Express has cancelled at least 16 Friday flights. They include those flying to and from Osaka, Kaohsiung, and Da Nang. Greater Bay Airlines and Hong Kong Airlines cancelled 4 flights to and from Tokyo and Osaka, as well as Haikou and Sanya. Cathay Pacific's Friday flight schedule remains unaffected so far.
We will start the flight rescheduling system to help airlines to reschedule their flight and resume their flight orderly. We expect the flight disruption or the arrangement will last for the whole day tomorrow.
The airport authority will provide support to passengers affected by flight cancellations, setting out rest areas and handing out supplies. With the issuance of the gale or storm signal number 8, bus routes around the airport will maintain limited service. The Airport Express Railway, however, will operate as usual. An electronic ticketing system will be in place for taxi services at the airport. Passengers can wait inside the terminal buildings after collecting a queue ticket. Ferry services between Hong Kong and Macau have been suspended. The Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau bridge will be closed from 9 p.m. The last Star ferry departed at 7:30 p.m. Multiple ferry and Kaito routes have also suspended services. Citybus, KMB, and Longwen bus routes will maintain daytime services for at least 2 to 3 hours after signal number 8 takes effect. The MTR said its trains will continue running under T8, but crowd management measures may be in place at specific stations. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
As Yagi whirls towards southern China, Macau is likely to issue the number 8 typhoon signal tonight. The incoming storm has caused traffic disruption as ferry operators temporarily ceased many services between Macau, Hong Kong, and Shenzhen for today and tomorrow. Low-lying areas near Macau's inner harbor are expected to see flooding of a depth of up to ½ a meter. Authorities have suspended primary, infant, and special education classes at schools today. A fireworks carnival set to take place in Macau on Saturday has also been postponed. Regions along the South China coast are also gearing up for Typhoon Yagi. The storm is expected to make landfall tomorrow and bring gusty winds and rain to parts of Hainan and Guangdong, as well as Fujian and the Taiwan Strait. Authorities have issued a red alert and elevated the emergency response to flood and typhoon prevention in Hainan to level 3. Yagi could be the most powerful storm to hit the island in a decade. In Hainan's provincial capital, Haikou, ferry services were halted in multiple ports. Rail services in and out of Hainan Island also faced temporary suspension. Yagi is forecast to make landfall between Qinghai and Hainan and Dianbai in Guangdong province tomorrow evening. In Guangdong, over 80,000 fishing boats have returned to ports. A 3-day summit of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation opened in Beijing today. President Xi Jinping announced the elevation of China's bilateral relationship with African nations to a strategic level. He said China will offer 360 billion yuan in financial assistance and stand ready to work with Africa to implement 10 partnership action plans to advance modernization. Sukura Ip reports from Beijing.
The opening ceremony of the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, which is celebrating its 24th anniversary this year, took place at the Great Hall of People this morning. President Xi Jinping welcomed leaders from more than 50 African nations. In his keynote speech, Xi said China-Africa relations are at their best in history, thanks to 70 years of tireless efforts from all the parties concerned. He proposed that bilateral relations between China and all African countries having diplomatic ties with Beijing be elevated to the level of strategic relations. He also called for elevating the overall China-Africa relations to an all-weather China-Africa community with a shared future for the new era. The theme of this year's summit is joining hands to advance modernization and build high-level China-Africa communities with a shared future. Xi noted that China and Africa account for 1/3 of the world population. He said, without our modernization, there will be no global modernization. He added that in the next 3 years, China will work with Africa to implement 10 partnership action plans to deepen cooperation and spearhead the global South modernization. The action plans cover such areas as infrastructure, health, green development, agriculture, livelihoods, cooperation in industrial chains, common security and trade. China will also open its market wider by giving zero-tariff treatment to all taxable imports from the world's least developed countries that have diplomatic ties with China, including 33 African nations. This has made China the first major economy to take such a step. To implement those action plans, the Chinese government will provide 360 billion yuan in financial assistance over the next 3 years. President Xi also said the third plenary section of the 20th Central Committee of the Communist Party of China has laid out a systematic plan for further reform to advance China's modernization. It also provides new opportunities and driving forces for African countries and for China and Africa's joint pursuit of modernization. Zakarib, TVB News, Beijing.
The families of the 72 people killed in the 2017 Grenfell Tower blaze in London are calling for justice after a UK public inquiry revealed widespread failures that turned the residents into a death trap. Management, construction companies, the fire brigade, local and national government were criticized. New Prime Minister Keir Starmer apologized on behalf of the state. David Garrett reports.
A small kitchen fire that turned into the worst residential blaze in Britain since World War II. The flames engulfed the 24-storey Grenfell Tower, blocking escape routes and filling the building with toxic smoke. Combustible cladding accelerated the inferno, first vertically, then horizontally. Some escaped in the early hours of that Wednesday, but other residents were unable to get out in time. The London Fire Brigade could not contain the fire as it burned for days. The LFB was criticised in the public inquiry as having a lack of leadership and being inadequately resourced to fight high-rise fires. 72 people died. Those who led the inquiry spoke of personal distress hearing desperate mobile phone calls. Their findings were damning, critical of the private and public sectors. On the exterior cladding, the inquiry chair said there was systematic lying.
That dishonest approach to marketing was compounded by the failure of 2 of the bodies that provided certificates of compliance with the building regulations and statutory guidance, the British Board of Agreement and Local Authority Building Control, to scrutinise the information provided to them with sufficient care and exercise the degree of rigour and independence that was to be expected of them. The residents were badly let down. The picture is one of a persistent failure to give sufficient importance to the demands of fire safety, particularly the safety of vulnerable people.
The tragedy prompted protests and soul-searching about inequality in Britain. Grenfell was a public housing building near one of the capital's richest neighbourhoods, Notting Hill, famed for a Hollywood film, expensive houses and fashionable stores.
I want to start with an apology.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer apologised on behalf of the state, repeating what the inquiry had concluded, that the simple truth is that the deaths were all avoidable. The support group for victims said that those that were lost died because of greed, corruption, incompetence and negligence. They want justice for the 72. Police and the Crown Prosecution Service say they may need years to review the years-long findings of the inquiry before proceeding with any criminal cases.
We ask for you to continue to stand with us, to stand for what's right and help us in holding those responsible to account. Finally, to the 54 adults and 18 children whose lives got cut short in the most violent way, we will never give up fighting for justice for you, and you will forever be in our hearts. Thank you.
David Garrett, TVB News.
Still ahead, Pope Francis and the Grand Imam of Southeast Asia's largest mosque make joint call to fight religious extremism and protect the environment. Yet another school shooting in the U.S. leaves 4 dead. And a newly discovered asteroid burns up in Earth's atmosphere over the Philippines. Welcome back. Pope Francis joined forces with the Grand Imam of Southeast Asia's largest mosque in a vow to fight religious extremism and climate change. It is his first visit to the world's most populous Muslim-majority country, the first stop on his four-nation tour of Southeast Asia and Oceania. The two religious leaders both signed a declaration calling for interfaith friendship and the protection of the environment. Nazvi Karim with more.
The 28-meter-long tunnel of friendship that connects Jakarta's Grand Istiqlal Mosque to the neighboring Catholic Cathedral of Our Lady of Assumption. Now a symbol of religious tolerance after Pope Francis said it was a potent sign of how different faiths can help everyone pass through the tunnel of life. The forging of closer ties between Islam and Catholicism strengthened as the mosque Grand Imam Nasruddin Umar kisses the Pope on his head. And Francis reciprocates by kissing the Imam's hand and holding it to his cheek. Umar described the tunnel as a melting pot for people of different faiths. The mosque is the largest in Southeast Asia, the entire complex covering 22 acres. The Pontiff and Umar signed a document known as the Istiqlal Declaration, vowing to fight religiously inspired violence and protect the environment. Indonesia has a population of 275 million, 87% of whom are Muslims, while 3% are Catholics.
Vi incoraggio a proseguire su questa strada.
The wheelchair-bound Francis hailed Indonesia's tradition of religious tolerance, though incidents of flare-ups have occurred over the years. On climate change, the declaration calls on all people to take decisive action to maintain the integrity of the natural environment and its resources. Large crowds gathered to catch a glimpse of the Pontiff. Jakarta, home to 10 million people, is vulnerable to climate change and is constantly battling flooding and sinking. The government is building a new capital at Nusantara on the island of Borneo. On Thursday, the Pope met beneficiaries of charities in Indonesia, and he presided over a mass to thousands of Indonesian Catholics at the Gelora Bung Karno Stadium in Jakarta. Indonesia is the first stop Francis' 12-day Asia-Pacific tour. On Friday, he leaves for Papua New Guinea before traveling to Timor-Leste and finally Singapore. Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
In the United States, a 14-year-old boy shot and killed 2 fellow students and 2 teachers. He wounded 9 others in a high school in Georgia. Authorities have charged the teen as an adult and taken him to a youth detention facility. Tracy Furness has more.
Scenes inside a classroom at the Apalachee High School moments after a 14-year-old student shot and killed 2 teachers and 2 students. Shot on a mobile phone, 1 student sobbing, hiding under a desk. Georgia's FBI Director Chris Hosey identified the attacker as 14-year-old Colt Gray. The teen was armed with a semi-automatic rifle and was believed to be acting alone. Authorities still don't know what motivated him to shoot.
I want to give our sympathies to our community, our school system, our kids, our parents that had to witness this today. Obviously, what you see behind us is an evil thing today.
A vigil was held in a local park Wednesday evening to remember those killed. Students Mason Schermerhorn and Christian Angulu and teachers Richard Aspinwall and Christina Ermeli.
I was walking out to get water and I heard gunshots and I heard bullets going like by my head. So I ran back in class and I yelled like, hey, there's a shooter, like they're shooting out there. And so I locked the door and like I just got like towards the back of the class and we cut the lights off and we just waited.
President Joe Biden said he and Jill mourned the deaths of those whose lives were cut short due to more senseless gun violence. The White House reacted by saying that more legislation is needed to keep communities safe.
The answer is legislation. We have to have laws, more laws, additional laws, so that we can protect communities.
Gray had been interviewed by law enforcement last year over online threats about committing a school shooting. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
A small asteroid discovered yesterday harmlessly burned up in Earth's atmosphere over the Philippines. The 1 meter wide asteroid was spotted by astronomers in Arizona. It broke apart over the coast of the Philippines hours later. The space rock was dubbed 2024 RW1, is only the 9th to have been spotted before impact. Asteroids of this size hurtle to Earth about every 2 weeks without posing danger. That is the news. Thanks for watching. Stay dry, stay safe. Bye for now.